Yes, we're into the Stooges portion of our programming, and that was from the, um, that was I Got Nothing, and that was recorded live at the Michigan Palace, 1974. This record is, looks like a European record of some sort. Oh, it's on Skydog, right, Skydog Records. I think that's French. And we're down here in the studio. We have an interview with some recollections that we produced the other day through the miracle of tape with Ron Asheton, who was the guitarist and later bass player, but always a member of the Stooges, as long as the Stooges existed. He's talking about some really early memories. In fact, on this tape clip that we're going to play now, he's talking about what first turned him on to the idea of music.
What really started me off, seriously wanting to play in a band, besides just being fascinated by seeing the Beatles, that whole first thing, the Stones, was actually seeing the Rationals at a Pioneer High School talent show. That time I was playing with Bill Kirchen. He had a jug band.
You were in a jug band with Bill Kirchen?
Bill Kirchen, yeah. I played harmonica. It was just mostly friends. You know, Bill and just a couple other people were the only real musicians.
Can you remember who else was in that band at all?
Rick Higginbotham.
Oh, really?
A girl named Heidi Bergman. Let's see. Mostly just friends. You know, Bill's friends. Then it was an audition, and right before us, the Rationals. And I went, oh man, sure they're not going to have us play after this, you know. But we did get on the bill. But I was really like, wow, they blew me away. Like, I was a junior and they were sophomores, and we hear these kids playing perfect, you know, For Your Love by the Yardbirds, you know, all these Beatles songs and what, wow. That's what really kicked me off into seriously getting my first electric guitar, which was Dave Alexander and my brother and Bill Cheatham. Like Dave, he moved into the neighborhood. We'd see this guy go by in this car with long hair, and it was rare back then to see people with long hair. Sitting out on the front porch, and finally Dave stopped one day, and we just started talking about what we want to do. He invited me down to his house, so he had this melody maker and a little Gibson amp. So I said, yeah, let's start a band. So no one played the bass, so for my birthday I got a bass. That's where we really started just eking things out. It's like a basement, put on the record player, and play like the bells have ridden me, you know, 1,000 times with the record, you know, and then try to turn the record off and play it. Well. So that's really what started it off, just basement down. Other than that, my first real professional type situation was in the Prime Movers, where Iggy was going to Pioneer High also. And I'd see him at school, and hey, it's another guy with a Beatle haircut. All right, you know, hey. So we used to meet down at the Michigan Union, and you know, at that time originally he was in the Iguanas, and he quit, hooked up with the Movers, and they were auditioning for bass players.
So tell me, where did people hang out in the Michigan Union at that point?
Well, it was what's now the bookstore. It was called
the University Cellar there.
Yeah, it was like a cafeteria. It was the hot spot to hang out. Mostly high school kids. You could stay for a while till they went around and check your ID and what.
They did that, huh?
Oh yeah, throw you out and just go around, stay out for about 15 minutes and go back in again. That was like the hangout. That and PJ's and the Virginian.
PJ's was that sort of hamburgers and soft ice cream.
Yeah, right
place?
there at the arcade, just before the Nichols Arcade.
Or that Bivouac or whatever it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that place was a real hangout too, right on the diag there.
And Betsy Ross, which was in the arcade. That was where all the Catholic kids hung out. Betsy Ross, it was this little restaurant. And I don't even know what stores. I think it took up 2 stores. I think it was Mason Edwards and that fabric shop. It was, you know, another one of the after-school hangouts. You cruised the Ross, the Union, PJ's, and over the Virginian. A little circle of action. Yeah.
We were talking with Ron Asheton. He was talking about hanging out, old high school days around town, hanging out in the State Street area and getting to know Ig. So carrying on with that, he's going to be talking about one of more influential bands around town at the time, the Prime Movers.
That's when I really got in touch with Iggy. And he's the one that turned me on to auditioning for the Prime Movers. So at that time, Rick Higginbotham was playing bass, and he couldn't play very well, but they liked the way he looked and his spirit and what. So I went in one night, played for him, got the job. And that's what really kicked off the real learning experience of playing music.
So what kind of job was that you got at that point with the Movers? Well, were they playing around a fair amount?
Yeah, they were just really taking off. I felt really, wow, I was blown back, because at that time they were, accomplished musicians. So what it did for me is I'd either skip school or every day after school, just go and practice. It's the house you live in now. It's the Prime Mover house.
Right, Nancy House.
That little room, right in that room, hours every day. They taught me a lot until they were so much better, more accomplished than myself at that time. They eventually copped to Jack Dawson, who was more their age group and a much finer player than me.
How long did you play with them?
I think I was in the band for like 6 months. Then after I saw it coming after I got the boot, I still hung around, did equipment, went out on their gigs, and they let me set in for a tune or two. They'd even do things like tell Jack practice was an hour later, so I could get to play for an hour with them.
Oh, that's
then
nice.
I still worked out with Iggy on drums, helped him learn the double shuffle. Just play some bass while he practiced his ass off every day, learning the double shuffle.
So those were really that was a really nice band, eh?
Oh, it was a great band. The Prime
People
Movers.
speak really highly of the Irwine brothers.
Yep, I've learned tons from the Irwine brothers. I've learned that was my first real foot in the reality of actually being in a band, and having the experience of. With Dave and Scotty was like basement things. None of us were good enough to really get that real hit of playing in a band. But those guys, it was like, whoa. They do like all the blues tunes. At that time they were doing stuff like some Stone songs, like I sang Not Fade Away. They were doing I'm a Man, which Iggy sang. Then they got more blues, just more into the solid blues. At that time they were doing like also Them. What else? What's that other great? Pretty Things, Rosalind. So it was like hitting on, it was still the blues flavor, but hitting on stuff that I eventually went on to, really dig. And I learned a lot from those boys.
What kind of places did you play around town with them, or did you go out of town?
Well, in town we did mostly the TGs.
What's that?
It's
Teen Jumps?
Well, thank God it's Friday.
Oh,
fraternity
right,
would
PG,
have a beer bash. So I'd get out of school and beat it down to the beer bash and do that for a couple hours. Then fraternities would hire us to play.
That was a big thing back then, wasn't it?
It was a real big thing. Eventually, after I left the Prime Movers, a band I was in with Chosen Few with Scott Richardson, who later went on to the SRC, we used to do those. Those guys get out of school, we beat it down. Every weekend we play fraternities and sororities here in town. That was a big thing. There wasn't really any clubs, per se, to play around, really. People would have a party and hire you to play or something like that. It wasn't too much until like Fifth Dimension, I think probably was the first clubs. Then there was the killer old...
When was that then? You were playing around with the Prime Movers before the Fifth Dimension opened?
Yeah. There was
I didn't know that was so...
virtually nothing here. There were no clubs.
Well,
it was all the college.
Hippie scene hadn't really grown out of the coffee shop scene, I guess, as far as colleges were concerned.
Those guys would do also bars. Like they did 2 weeks in Grand Rapids at this bar, and we lived above.
It was a college bar then?
No, it was just all types. It was just like this redneck. There were a lot of close shaves with, drunken redneck types with the Irwine brothers with their long curly hair. They'd, guys get really drunk and call them like, hey, Brillo head or hey, nigger hair or something like that. It was a lot of close shaves, but it was fun. You just get so plowed, just transcend the danger. There's always that edge of, man, there could be a fight any second.